welcome to Downward Dogma, a podcast that explores and challenges today's authority system. Join us as we discuss the ingredients and functionality of our current framework and explore some possible solutions. Prepare to have your awareness of today's political terrain expanded. And now, your hostesses, Jennie and Sarah.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Downward Dogma. You are here with myself, Jennie McDaniel, and the lovely Sarah Murphy. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good to
hear
it. I'm doing pretty good, enjoying this sunny day in New Mexico, and had a few good sessions earlier, and I'm all vibed up, ready to have conversation with you. Have you been having a good day?
Yeah, I worked outside this morning, mainly because my house is overflowing and I needed to be on video calls. And so it was really, really nice until about 2 o'clock, and it got super humid, so I was not as comfortable for my second to last call as it was earlier in the day. But I'm not complaining because this weather just makes me so happy. I don't have to wear the coat and worry about the rain, and I just that's my happy place, is this warm, slightly humid, but not hot. It's not like 98 degrees yet, like I know it will be. So treasuring it while we've got it.
I would say yet. I just came from the south of that area a couple of years ago, and it will get hot in the summer. But people didn't think that Tennessee got real cold in the winter, and I'm like, oh no, it can get frigid down there too. So because it's kind of not as south maybe as some people think it is. It's kind of more in the middle there. But nonetheless, you get the heat and then you get the cold in the dead of winter too.
Yeah, we've been in unseasonably cool spring, which is, of course, this is the year I decided that I was going to launch a bar build company. And so as of October, everything's outside. We have a warehouse, but it's unheated. And so I survived all winter using propane heaters while de-thawing. And so now I'm like, oh, great, it's a little bit, it's going to warm up, because Tennessee always warms up around this time. Nope, it's been chilly up until, I think I was laying outside next to the fireplace last week, and it was 40 degrees outside.
It was winter until last week.
Exactly. So I'll take the humidity and a little bit of heat for sure. It's been nice.
My boyfriend's friend lives in Arizona, and he goes, this week's going to be great. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to go biking. And my boyfriend's like, yeah, what's it going to be? He goes, 90. He goes, 90 already? Wow. And he goes, oh, yeah, it gets to, when it gets to 115, that's when you stay inside. And he's like, so this is great still. I'm like,
oh my
perspective, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness. I can't even.
I couldn't do Arizona. It's amazing, the difference of weather between Arizona and New Mexico, even though they're no states apart. They touch each other. It's incredible, the difference. So good to be back with you. And everyone, this is Downward Dogma, and we're here every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're here every Tuesday. So if you have some ideas of things you want us to talk about, or if you have questions, you can email us we'll just use heartoverego@gmail. And today we have a great topic. We are going to be talking a little bit more about the balance of home life, work life, entrepreneurship, and motherhood during quarantine. And then, of course, we usually organically segue into other topics and ideas. But I'll just start off with asking you, Sarah, with the most experience in this, about it and how you're managing it. So do you find that and I'll just start with the good stuff because I like to, do you feel some levels of resentment come up every once in a while with this, or do those not touch you? Meaning having to juggle everything and getting overwhelmed and having maybe that energy of resentment come in.
It's a good question, because I actually hadn't even considered feeling resentment. That's not one of the options that I have oftentimes felt guilty for sure, because juggling the stay-at-home mom thing with also being a work-at-home mom with 2 small children has been a lot. And like all things, you have to pick. You can't do all things at once. You literally can only ever do one thing at once, even though you feel like you're multitasking. There's actually a really good book about that, and I forget the author, but the title is One Thing, or The One Thing. Because I always was like, I'm a great multitasker. It's like on my resume still, I think. And then I read this book, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm a good switcher. I'm a switcher of tasks, but I'm not actually doing any 2 things at once.
I've read that. And not a book, but an article about that, how you may think you're a multitasker, but you can really only focus on one thing at once. And I'm like, that's true. I pretend I can watch TV and read at the same time, but I'm only focusing on one or the other, really.
Yeah. That's right. What you're doing, even if you're doing both, you're reading, then you're watching TV, then you're reading, then you're watching TV. Like, your brain doesn't actually process 2 things at once. So, the same thing with, being a work-at-home mom and a stay-at-home mom, like, I can only do one at a time, and there are periods when my business needs me more than my kids do. Maybe not more, but like at least as much as. And so I have to like pick, and that comes with a lot of guilt. But basically, you feel guilty from the moment you find out you're pregnant. So it's like, oh, there's 2 lines. It's like, oh, there's 2 lines. Oh, that glass of wine I had last night. Like, I'm gonna call my doctor and see if I screwed this all up. You know what I mean? Like, there's guilt from the moment you start trying even. So I'm not sure that resentment is something that I'm very good at, because I'm kind of past that in my evolutionary process, I think. Like I'm one of those that believe that things happen for me, not to me. And so it's really hard to get in that resentment space, I think.
Excellent. And this is so helpful for me to hear it from a more level perspective, because what I was doing with that question, intentionally or unintentionally, is I was projecting how I would feel and asking you if you deal with it. So very good. I'm so glad that doesn't resonate with you. And those are the people that should have kids, when there isn't going to be an autopilot, almost just default space to go to resentment of having so much responsibility and trying to manage a life and trying to manage maybe even a business or a job or a career. So that, I think, is a common space women go, is the resentment, and I'm glad that you don't touch that. But guilt, I'm sure that's right up there with it. Like you said, the second you find out you're pregnant, you're like, sweet God, did I eat enough carrots? Oh my, I went on benders in my 20s. I know this is going to make, go down the line there. Probably a good idea to not go too far into
How do I solve this generational trauma before they're born,
Better get on it. I have 9 months. I better figure this out.
That's right. So there's no lack of guilt ever. But even that, I rationalize away, healthy or unhealthy. And I think my very first conversation with you ever was when we met in Chattanooga, and I'd come in for a massage that my husband had gifted me, like the kind soul that he is. And my children came up, and I probably rambled on. I was in that super like ungrounded space where, you probably said, so how are you feeling? And I was probably like, I don't know. I work all the time. I've got 2 kids. I feel like I'm failing at everything. Like, blah. I just like, in my head, I'm like, this woman's like, damn, I just wondered how, like, should I focus on your shoulders or your calves? Like, that's kind of what I assumed you were feeling. But you said something then, and I've never forgotten it. And not verbatim, but, it's like, these children chose you, and, you're a strong, independent mother, and, that's good for them to see. And, like, I was like, oh, my God, yes. That's like, so I feel the guilt. I lean into the guilt every once in a while, and then I also remind myself, like, they chose me. They chose this existence. Like, this is part of who I am. It's who I've always been. They chose to spend their lifetimes with me, whether to, work off some karma or, maybe help me with some of mine. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But here they are, and I'm just doing the best that I can with the tools that I've got, and trying to be a little bit better every day. And so then, even then, I can't stay in the guilt for too long either. So
good, excellent, glad to hear it, because I'm imagining it's just a constant battle of trying to alchemize, like, am I doing it good enough? And then you got all the other pressures of life. You feel like you also are a wife. You also have several businesses. So what I've noticed is when I get ran a little thin, I allow certain things to bug me more. Of course, like my guilt might come up a little bit, stress or fear or anger might come up a little bit, and I just know that I'm a little thin and I need to pull it back together and get back on board here. And those are just triggers. Those are ways, like whether it be guilt or stress or fear or resentment or anything, if it comes up, you're just knowing that you're rubbing up against something. Take a moment to look at it, see if you can dissolve it and figure it out. But it's a forever spiritual uphill battle of working with, I would call it ego energy, stress, anxiety, fear, hate, greed, all the things. Very human, right? It's what we come here to do. And speaking of your kids picking you, when you were talking about what I was saying to you, I was getting flashes of the actual session and some other things to say to you. And also, I didn't think you were rambling on. I actually will bring it out of people, I think. My massage room or maybe my energy will make people feel comfortable where they can kind of vomit that out and be like, hey, I'm a single mom, or not a single mom, but I'm a mom, a full-time mom and a wife, and I have all these businesses. And I'm like, that's what we're supposed to do here. So I appreciate when people go on like that. You may have felt bad about it. Again, I recommend you don't, but it was awesome. It was the intention and to pull that out. So while I'm doing the physical work, of course. So I don't know where I was going before that, but I just want to say that I think that you do an incredible job. I read energy, of course, for a living, and I read energy through pictures, and I'm not sure I've ever read a little girl's energy as solid as yours. So I can see why they picked you. This is where I was going with it. I can see that those types of souls, whatever they end up doing with their lovely little free wills, or big, we'll call it, they chose you to be a guideline and a blueprint of how it can be done. So just any mom wouldn't have worked for them. They needed a backbone on their mother, and guess what you got? And there's things that they could hold space with you and learn and grow with you. So wonderful. Yeah, it's great. I often think that kids are almost 100% karma. So I'll ask you this while we're on the topic of your young daughters there.
Yes.
Do you find yourself remembering your mother talking to you kind of in similar ways or fashions or situations? Do you kind of have flashes of being young when you're dealing with your daughters?
Yes, I do. Some of it's the really cliche stuff where you're like, oh my God, I just sounded like my mother. Like if you're yelling, or you're like, in my case, I'll talk through my teeth, which is something that my mother does. Get over here.
You better get over here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my God, my mom used to do that, and now I'm doing that. So on the cliche level, absolutely. I think that both my kids are a little bit young today, but my mother always gave me space to like believe what I felt was like truth spiritually, and I loved that, and I always appreciated the fact that, she wasn't ever like, no, like, this is the way it is. And so, like, I think I said this in the past episode, like, the first time I read the Celestine Prophecy, I was 12, and my mother and I read it together, like, different times, but, like, I read it, she read it, something like that. And so, like, we were able to kind of talk about it and, like, how it resonated really hard with me, but for her, she's like, I don't know, I just didn't really like it. And so we'd, like, talk about that. And so I do like to do that with my kids because Kaya is very drawn to the Bible. She loves the stories, but she loves to talk about it. She loves to talk about God and, like, well, why did God make it rain today? Doesn't he know that we're trying to have fun today? Like, just silly little stuff like that. But it's clear that, like, she's always thinking about, God and the divine, and I just think that's really fun. And I was reading this book the other day, which I highly recommend, and I'm going to recommend it on every platform that I have available to me, but it's by Rebecca Campbell, and it's called Rise, Sister, Rise. And it's just the most beautiful feminine energy book, and, you just really kind of so many keys to, like, understanding in it. And there's this one part, and it's a very short part, but it's about names and how there's something magical about names, and if you discover the meanings of them, like, they just seem to fit, like, their purpose for, in life, even though, like, you look at the baby name books and you kind of pick one that you're like, oh, that's beautiful. You pick a name that's beautiful. I look at my kids, and we didn't really, because our names are so unique that the baby name books, if they even had, meanings in them, were just kind of lame. And so I was like, oh, okay, so nothing too special there. But Everly, my daughter, she's my wild child, spirit on that child. I don't know if she can't be tamed. I know this to be certain, but I need to be able to have enough strength to hold on during the ride. That's all. Her name means wild boar in forest meadow. And if that is not the exact definition of my child, a wild boar in a forest meadow.